Hi, I'm Dr. Sylvia Peregrino, and this is Entre Nosotras, Latina Voices. Today, I'm honored to have Shonique Tornes, who's part of the Black History Month committee here at El Paso Community College. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, definitely.
Please tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, where do I start? I can't start at birth, but let me see if I can get the good parts. Pretty much, I was born here, so I'm a native El Pasoan, and I ended up leaving for different things. Military, ended up coming back with the most precious cargo, my daughter, who is now off in college. She's at Texas A&M College Station, and pretty much just been a single mom, and I'm a community volunteer. I'm also a peer leader for a women's veterans group called Woven, and all those opportunities have been awesome. There's been more things. I collaborate also with a Black El Paso Voice, and it's just been an awesome experience. Very adventurous here on the border here in El Paso.
Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for all the community service and outreach you're doing. So how did you first get involved with diversity programs?
Great question. We're starting off really well. I know that people have a voice, but at the same time, people can choose to use it or not. And I saw a need, so I wanted to make sure that I put my money where my mouth was, or my time where my time where that goes. And I decided to volunteer and to give back and to be a part of the solution and not the problem, where people aren't aware of Black history, especially here in El Paso, being on the border. They may know, but they might not pay it forward, so to speak.
And I know that you mentioned that you were also a student here at El Paso Community College once upon a time.
Yes, I'm glad you said once upon a time, because it was a long time ago. It was called the late 90s. Definitely good days. But definitely when I was going to school then, a lot has changed. And what has happened is I've seen a lot of growth in a positive direction. So I'm glad to have been affiliated with El Paso Community College, and even more so today.
And we're thankful that we were able to be a small part of your journey. And thank you for coming back and giving back to our institution by serving in this capacity. So tell us a little bit about the theme or the festivities for this year's Black History Month commemoration.
With pleasure. This year our theme is Black Resistance. I guess in French you would say Black Resistance, I'm not sure. But you want to get excited about it because it's an opportunity to tell your story. So this year, the event that I'm going to be moderating is going to be on February the 15th. And we're going to have 3 awesome panelists, and they, in their own right, exemplify Black excellence. So we're going to have Abani Janae, and we're going to have Reverend Beverly Mathis, and we're going to have Marcus McCoy. So for that, in a nutshell, we have representation in our community here, and they are going to be able to tell their story in regards to the Black resistance then and now.
And so when you say Black resistance, like, what do you mean by that?
Well, I'll share my story in the sense of we all have experienced different things in regards to the ugliness of discrimination and not being treated kindly. And with that, if we attach it to the history, it ends up being where you were kind of sidelined. You were told, or you were felt or made to feel that you were not worthy. And for a lot of people, even here in El Paso, you can feel and experience something like that today. And it's just something that you know that you have to grow forward. You have to grow forward. And that's why we have this platform. We want to make sure we create the awareness. So I'm challenging everyone to do their part and participate. You will not know, you will not learn unless you do.
And I know that I'm excited about the panel. I will notify my students so that they can go as well. So that's exciting that you're going to be moderating that. And that's at the Valle Verde campus, I believe?
Yes, it's going to be at the Valle Verde campus, and the good thing is that it's a good spot. You know how they say location, location, location. It's a great spot for people to be able to gain access and to be there on time, so that way they can be a part of this awesome opportunity.
And is it also open to members of the community, or is it more for students and faculty?
That's a good question. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, definitely. It's open to the community. So I get it. If you stay far on the west side, you might not want to come. Give us a call. Find out a way to stay connected, to be a part of it. We have some people that might not have transportation. Let's get a ride. You know, there's no reason for people not to do what can be done unless they stop the buck with them.
And this is why we're letting people know with time so that they can make arrangements, maybe take some time during, take an extended lunch hour so that they can participate. So that's exciting, and I'm happy to hear about the panelists. And I think you bring up a good point with resistance, because recently the legislature has outlawed critical race theory. And I know that I've been watching the 1619 series on Hulu.
Yes.
And that's even outlawed as well in the state of Texas. Now, I guess since we're in a higher education institution, it's not outlawed yet. But I think there are movements to not teach about some of the history and some of the things that occurred in the past.
Thus, the Black resistance. If you're choosing not to put the information out there, which is true, which is facts, then you're resisting the Black from being Black. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because there's so many Black resistance stories. There's so many people that have yet to tell their story. So that's why I'm glad we have I call her young lady. We even have someone on the panel, Reverend Beverly Mathis, who's one of our baby boomers. So, and she's a native El Pasoan también also. So it's important to be able to speak your truth. And when you are told, or it is taken from you, the opportunity is taken from you, you're speaking without speaking. And that is not the way to go. Not at all.
So I'm glad that you're going to bring forward these voices, and for the next generation to have a chance to learn from the elders and people that have been around during the civil rights movement. I teach government, and so my students, when they think of the 1960s, for them it's ancient history, but it wasn't that long ago. I mean, there are still people alive who grew up during segregation and who fought for civil rights and who continue to fight for civil rights. So I'm really glad that you put together this panel with a committee.
Awesome. It was not by myself. It was definitely, like you said, the committee, and we put our minds together. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity, because there's so many people. They say things, they complain, they talk to this person or maybe talk to themselves behind the wheel. But until you bring it to the people who can make a difference, you're just talking. That's my take on it.
No, and I think you bring an important point that if we don't get engaged, if we don't learn from our past, then we can't make these changes.
Very, very true. Very true.
And so, besides the panel, what other activities do we have planned for Black History Month here at the college?
I'm glad you said it, because my top three is music. I love music. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. On the 23rd of February, it's going to be at 7:30. It's going to be a pianist and it's going to be a saxophonist. So those of you that are music enthusiasts or instrumentalists, this is going to be what they call a night of jazz. And it's going to be at the Valle Verde campus también also. And then on February the 24th, it's going to be at the Trans Mountain Cafe, and it's going to be the Black Resistance in Music with the saxophonist Gil Del Bosque and then the pianist Billy Towns. So come out, enjoy. Those of you that love not just music per se, but you want to get out the house. You want to do something different. You might have a bucket list. Who knows? Do something different. Don't be in the same place that you were in last year in 2022.
And I've been to, before COVID, I went to one of the jazz nights and I really enjoyed it. And so Also, I guess a good point to maybe encourage more people. All these events are free, correct?
Yes, free y gratis.
And you can bring your picnic basket, you can bring your lawn chair, and just take advantage of the, hopefully we get good weather.
I hope so,
Of the
definitely.
nice evening.
Now, I don't know the specifics in regards to the lawn chair and stuff. That does sound divine. But I would definitely call the number and or contact El Paso Community College, the diversity department, so that way they can provide the clarity, because things change. So just to be on the safe side, call the source, so that way any questions that you need for clarity purposes, they can answer that for you.
Okay,
But I look forward to going and seeing everyone.
And that'll be a night of good entertainment?
Yes, definitely. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a popcorn type of thing or if it's chicken wing kind of thing. I don't know. But the entertainment itself should provide you with some sustenance.
That's great. No, and also, a great evening, a great family opportunity that people can enjoy.
Yes, and also taking it back to the Black resistance in regards to music. If you had a chance to go back in history, since you say you teach government, there are so many things that have happened in our history that you can hear a song, and that song brings you back to that moment in time. If we're looking at the Black resistance, there are so many artists, there's so much music out there. I would encourage you to listen to it and tie it into the Black resistance, so you can hear and feel what was more than likely going on at that time.
And I think you make an excellent point, because we just had the Grammys, and just the contribution that African American artists have made to the culture, to rock and roll, to R&B, and popular pop culture, everything. Before COVID, and now that's how we talk, right? Before COVID, after
Yes.
COVID. Before COVID, I had a chance to visit the African American Smithsonian in DC.
Awesome.
And, really, wow, profound, the history of how African Americans were brought to this nation, and just all the contributions the African American community has made to sports, to American culture, to civil rights.
Yes.
I know that when I teach government, I talk about Dr. Lawrence Nixon and how he was the first person to challenge the white primary, so that African Americans could have the right to vote, and that it took a few years for the court to actually, he did that in the 1920s, and it wasn't until 1944 that the Supreme Court came to see the light. And even then, I think we've had efforts even recently to prohibit people from voting, or to make it more difficult for people to vote. And so I'm glad that the theme is resistance this year.
Yes, me too. And I'm glad you brought up Dr. Nixon, because even in the 20s, Black resistance. And it seems like anything that would be considered a threat, or be considered as something for a group of people, ethnic group, to prosper, it's another way to keep them down. And so the Black resistance is something that really kind of transcends to a lot of people, generationally as well, and it hits your pockets, it hits almost every facet of your lives. So I'm glad that you brought him up, because he went through a lot. And to see his efforts come full circle, it starts somewhere. It really does. So I'm glad our theme is Black resistance this year, and I'm hoping that our community puts the action where it needs to be. And I did have someone ask me, if I may share.
Sure.
I had someone ask me, why do you advocate? Why do you speak so much for the Black community? And this is someone who, they are prideful Mexican, and I'm not mad at that. Be proud. But they ask because they want to know. And I appreciate that. I respect that. And so I shared. I said, if you were to close your eyes right now and you were to imagine yourself being me, here, where you see that you are the minority, even though across the United States we are considered, well, the Hispanic culture or the Mexican culture, they're considered to be the minority. Here on the border, we're the true active minority. We don't necessarily get the same deal when we get ready to go to the convention center. We don't get a chance to get the same deal because the food is different. Things that might make sense and are traditional are not necessarily a one-size-fits-all. So that awareness needs to come out in regards to the Black resistance, as well as the struggle of being heard, being seen, and being taken seriously.
For me, at least, when I went to graduate school on the East Coast, there were no Latino professors. And so my mentors were African American or Caribbean American faculty members, because they took the students of color under their wing. And so I'm very fortunate and thankful that we can make alliances, and that there's some areas that we find solidarity in terms of public policy. I hope that yes, what surprised me recently is that African Americans in Texas has the largest number of African Americans. And so I didn't know that. I mean, I know, it doesn't look like it here in El Paso, but I guess at the Big H in Houston and other parts of the state, maybe that's more noticeable.
It really is. And then the Black community that I've come in contact with here, a lot of us come here by way different ways. Some of us come by way of the railroad, some of us come by way of military, and other ways, but we don't necessarily come from the same geographical area, thus not the same mindset. So when it comes to how I was raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina, even though I was born here, because my dad was Army. And so I was called like a Army brat, military brat, something like that. So for me, whenever I would see someone who looked like me, I'd speak. I'd say, "What's up? Hey, how you doing?" But for people who did not necessarily have that close-knit or cohesive type of community, that doesn't necessarily transcend here. So it's like we are also having the resistance within the resistance and coming together, being together, and staying collective in our efforts in moving forward. But we can't do that until we all come together. So I'm glad that you had that opportunity of having those nuggets to be shared with you. Because to me, I think that's how we share, that's how we grow. And I'm just glad to meet you today and be able to see all this.
No, and I appreciate you taking the time, to volunteer and to still stay active with the college, and to bring forward the resources and helping to put together the panel with the committee, because I do think that Black history is important, and women's history is important, and to be inclusive. And yes, our community is minority majority, but we can always learn from others. And I think for me as a Chicana, I know that the people in the Chicano movement emulated a lot of what the African American community did when it comes to voter registration, when it comes to civil rights. And I think that there are still areas of common ground that we can find.
Yes, definitely. I am so excited. I'm getting goosebumps just talking with you, Dr. Pellegrino, because the opportunity to have a voice is not necessarily out there for people to just come and have a seat at the table. So thank you for allowing me to speak with you today and share this platform, and go El Paso.
Yeah, no, and thank you for being a guest and for highlighting these exciting events that we're having over the course of this month. I think we're also doing read-ins in some of the campuses.
I heard that it's going to be something similar to, and don't quote me on it, something similar to like poetry night or poetry reading. So, which is really popular in the African American or Black community, where it's like a little bit of jazz and you get a chance to speak, whether it's spoken word by way of poetry, or some people combine music for vocals or an instrument piece. It just depends. It could be even art by way of them painting or drawing. It's pretty deep, but it's a good pretty deep, and it's a great way to learn.
And it's a good way for people to have a chance to express themselves and to, teach others about artists or poets that they might not know a lot about.
Yes, and you brought up a good point. I wanted to make sure I said our local talent. Our local talent's going to be Kodaya Butler, and she's a soprano. And then we have the baritone, Dendre Wright. I wanted to make sure I said that because I'm not going to put everyone out that's outside of El Paso before we put our El Paso family and community in there. So I want to make sure I did that. Sorry.
And that's wonderful that we have all this local talent that maybe people are not familiar with, and so this is an opportunity to highlight them. I guess also thinking, as part of our interview, I was thinking about some of the achievements that the African American community has made with respect to education. And so I know that recent census figures kind of show that African Americans are almost at parity when it comes to high school educational attainment, but are still lagging a little bit behind in higher education. And so I don't know if you want to speak to that or from your experiences as a student.
Mind you, this is just my opinion. I would have to say obtaining higher education is a choice, and it's a mindset. A lot has changed in our world to where a lot of people don't necessarily see education as something to obtain or to earn. They see it more so as, if I have to choose between making $1 or getting my education, a lot of people aren't paying what they would pay the average person today, and probably what they paid them back then. So I think I'm going to go out and hustle in regards to working really hard and being more of a laborer, and I'm going to earn that money and make sure I instill in my children and family members who are younger than myself to get their education. And that's been my take on it for the most part. And also, the opportunity may not be there. If it is, they haven't seen it yet. So for my understanding and what I understand in regards to that, it's a will. It's an opportunity for them to see it and see that their potential can take them to higher heights and improve their quality of life.
And I think you bring a good point there, that, maybe if a person is a first generation college student, their family's struggling, so they're in survival mode. So maybe, and the cost of higher ed have gone up. And so maybe, you have a daughter at A&M, and so you know all about the costs, right, with dorms and tuition and textbooks. So you make a good point that, maybe not in this generation, but maybe for the next generation. So I know we've touched upon a lot of topics today.
Yes.
So I don't know if there's anything that you would like to add, or if anything we missed.
Thank you for asking, because I've been trying to throw it in as I go. Honestly, we only live once, in theory. So, on the evolutionary track, do something today that you've never done. Of course, not to get you in trouble, but do something within reason that you've never done to broaden your horizons, broaden your mindset, and to improve you, your community, and your quality of life.
And that's a wonderful message and a wonderful thought to live on. Thank you to our guest from the Black History Month Committee, Ms. Shonique Tornes, and thank you for telling us about all the festivities this month. I encourage everybody to participate, to broaden their horizon. All the activities are free and open to community members as well as our EPCC family. I'm Dr. Sylvia Peregrino, host of Entre Nosotras, Latina Voices. Please join us in the future, where we're going to have more guests promoting EPCC and promoting community events. Thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me. Yay, El Paso.